So, this is the third and final episode in this three-part series where I've really been unpacking skills I use as a certified life coach every day with my clients, with myself, with my family, with my friends, with anyone who is struggling with just kind of feeling like something's just not the way that I would like it to be. What do I do with that? And it seems like we're living through times where there is just a lot of feelings of life being out of control, spinning out of control, just kind of being crazy. And so this three-part series has given you, and we'll finish it up today with a series of steps that you can take. Today, we're going to be really bringing things full circle for the last part. And I've got 5 different action steps that are going to, again, do what I call helping you climb out of the backseat and into the driver's seat of your life. In the backseat, life is happening to you. In the driver's seat, you get to have some say-so. And so make sure that you have listened to the previous episodes where we have done parts 1 and 2. And when you have done that, come back here today because this is going to be an episode that fills you with hope and empowerment and really just excitement about what it looks like to actually take back control of your life. So with that, let's jump into this episode of the Intentional Midlife Mom podcast.
Well, hey there, I am Jennifer Roskamp, a certified life coach and homeschool mom of 9 who is passionate about helping women just like you embrace the here and now while also being focused on creating the life you actually want. As a midlife mom in her 40s, about to be a mom in my 50s, I've realized that it's so easy to lose yourself in caring for your family, your home, and all the things. Until one day you realize you're not even sure who you are anymore or what you even want in life. So on this podcast, we're going to work on managing yourself well so that you can manage all of the other things and people well too. So let's dive into what it means to manage your home, your time, your family, and yourself well. This is the Intentional Midlife Mom podcast.
All right, so just to do a really quick review of what we talked about thus far in this series. So there is 3 different parts. And in the beginning, in the first episode, we kind of did a lot of talking about just kind of awareness. We kind of talked about what it's like to what we are allowed to do in our own life. We talked about how I still decide, right? There are always going to be elements of life that you can't control, but I still decide. I really kind of equipped you with this empowering thought. And then we talked about what it means to be human. And we just kind of talked about how it is normal and natural to have responses to things, to situations, to problems, to triggers. All of those are normal. And we talked about what that looks like to be a human. I'm just really gaining some insight into who we are as people. And then we talked about a bunch of things in episode 2. We talked about a bunch of things we can't control, but then we pivoted and we talked about the things that we can control. And so, and then I gave you a very practical skill. I gave you some steps in how to organize a space in your home, something simple like a drawer or a shelf or something that's totally doable. And the reason that I left you with that very practical skill is because in this episode today, we're going to take those same steps, that same skill that you learned in a practical and practiced in a practical way, and we're going to apply it to what it is like to control your thoughts. Because just like we can control elements of our physical environment, we certainly can control our mindset. And so today, as we jump in, you're going to use the same skills to work through your mindset in the exact same way. So basically, in the previous episode, I showed you how I control my environment, right? That is something we can control. I control my environment. And we talked about that as it relates to your home and this one particular space in your home. So what we're going to talk about today is I can control my mind. I can control my mind. And remember, just a few of those things we talked about that you can't control. You can't control others. You can't control their perceptions. You can't control their judgments. You can't control their expectations. There is certainly a lot of external events and circumstances that you can't control. but you can control your mind. And it is such a powerful skill to be able to do. Really, when I work with my one-on-one coaching clients, when I work in my coaching community, when I work with anyone, coaching anyone anywhere, this is what I'm helping them do. This is at the baseline of what I help anyone do. Yes, we get into the practical skills of it. I might talk time management. I might help one of my clients create a daily schedule. I might help one of my clients create a bedtime routine. I might help one of my clients problem solve a situation with a relationship where she needs boundaries. We might do those very practical things. But before we do those practical things, we are taking back control of her mindset first. So here's how to do it. And again, we've got the same steps from the previous episode. Number one, when you want to take back control of your mind, you need to start by number one, unpacking your mind. You need to unpack it first, just like the kitchen drawer example that I gave you in the previous episode. You might have to unpack and reorganize that drawer. Same thing. You need to do it with your mindset. You need to do it with your thoughts. It's the same thing. We've got to unpack it so that we can reorganize it. And you need to do this on paper. Now, can you do it digitally on paper? Sure. But I will say studies show that when you actually go through the act of putting pen to paper, it processes things differently. It processes things deeper. It gives you a different sense of ownership. And so it's an advantage, I will say, to actually use a pen and paper. So I highly suggest that. But essentially what we're doing here is a brain dump. And if you are in a season where life feels overwhelming or chaotic or out of control, know that this might be something that you can benefit from doing multiple times a day even. When life feels overwhelming or out of control, what is happening? What are the thoughts? What is in my mind that is making me feel this way? What are the triggers? Also, in a very practical way, you can brain dump practical things too that we carry around in our brain. And they also just make your brain feel chaotic. Things you need to remember, things you need to figure out, phone calls you need to make, to-do list, all that stuff. It doesn't matter what you dump out of your brain. You dump it out. I love the skill of reassessment. This is something that I teach all of my coaching clients. We practice it every single week in my coaching community. The skill of reassessment. It's when we take what we thought would happen, we take our plan, and then we compare that or we align that with what actually happened. And then we say, okay, these two things here could look very, very different, but how can I reconcile them so that I can move forward? And we do that on paper. And the reason that we do that on paper is because, again, we can see things more clearly. So remember, this unpacking of your mind is something you can do when it comes to practical things that feel like they're stressing you out, or they can also help you with the complex things that you're wrestling with. But if you want to take back control of your mind, you've got to start with step number one, unpacking it. Step number two, once you've done that, you need to look at what you have. What did you put there? We need to assess it. We need to sort through it. When it comes to the thoughts you're having, you need to ask yourself, are these helpful thoughts? Do these benefit me, or are they toxic thoughts? Maybe there's some negative self-talk in there. What we want to do is you want to be able to sort through and only allow back into your mind things that belong there. Here's something else important. You don't have to take ownership of the thoughts that others give you that aren't serving you. Thinking back to those judgments and those expectations, you don't have to entertain or give brain space to what others give you if it's not useful or serving you. One good question to ask as you're looking at the things and you're looking at what you have is this my stuff or is this someone else's? So you need to sort through and decide what to do with all of these thoughts. What do I do with this stuff? That's step number two. Step number three is you're going to put the thoughts that serve you back in a more organized way. Just one small piece at a time. Sometimes we carry around the concept that we have to have it all figured out. And we have to know what we're going to do the first thing, and then the second step, and the third step, and the fourth step. And we carry around the weight of having to have life, circumstances, situations, complexities all figured out. And this is not feasible. And this contributes so much to that weight, that weightiness that we can feel in our minds, that chaoticness that we can feel in our minds. Only put back the things that are useful, and only put back what you can manage now and what you need to manage now. You don't need to manage 12 steps down the road in most cases, but we try. We try to take on that stress and that angst and that, again, that complexity of what is to come so far down the road. We give that brain space, and it adds to that turmoil. And we should not be worrying about that right now. We only need to worry about what we need to worry about right now. What is only relevant to right now? So often we would do ourselves a favor if we would ask ourselves only to entertain the thoughts that were relevant to right now. So as you're putting the thoughts back in, make sure you're only putting back in thoughts that are relevant to right now. Only put back the things that are useful. Only put back the things that are truly yours. Only put back what's realistic. So put back the thoughts that belong there and keep the rest on paper. You've got it on paper. It's there. You can go back to it. You can reference it. You can pick it back up later. A lot of times this is what I help clients do, is we dump out the things, we sort through them, and we say, what do we need to worry about right now? We know we can come back and revisit this later. Those will be there. Whatever we're leaving on the paper, we can always come back to those. Let's just focus on what we can work with right now and what we need to work with right now, and leave the rest on the paper. Doing this does give you a sense of closure, because it's not like you're asking yourself to ignore things. You've got them there on the paper. It's just that you're going to be discerning with what you allow back in your mind. The rest can stay on paper. Later, you can go back and work with those. You can revisit them. I love reminding myself, and one of the things I remind clients of all the time is, we can always revisit this later. But for right now, this isn't useful. This isn't helpful. This is contributing to that feeling like the world is out of control right now. So let's revisit these things later. So that's kind of the third step when it comes to, again, controlling your mindset. By the way, this is a very surface level look at what it's like to control your mindset. This is a very complex series of events that really, controlling your mindset isn't simple. I've simplified it here. I just wanted to clarify that. So how then do we move forward from chaotic situations that were challenging, situations that are challenging, situations that are very much out of your control? How do we move forward from that? So again, let me just kind of echo what I just kind of said, is know that this is not easy. I'm laying these steps out to you here in this episode, but know that it's a simple concept. Yes, I can lay out some steps, but a lot of times this is actually going to be difficult in execution. It's going to take time. So here's the thing to note, though. When it comes to moving forward from anything, even if it's difficult, even if you know it's going to be gut-wrenchingly difficult, the reality is, if you're not choosing to make your situation better, it's likely not going to get better. So what choice do we have but to choose to move forward? Let me ask you that again. What choice do you have, if you want things to get better, but to choose to move forward? And when you are choosing to move forward, here's 4 steps to help you do that. Step number 1, allow the feelings about what's making you feel like the world is out of control. Allow those feelings. Feelings are not bad. You're not a bad person for feeling whatever those feelings are. Again, on paper, what are the feelings you're having? Allow them. Allow yourself to feel them, hold space for them, experience them. You're not bad and they aren't bad. And know that you don't have to qualify or justify these feelings either. What I'm asking you to do here is step number 1, identify and allow the feelings that are contributing to this out of control feeling that you're having. You got to identify and allow these feelings. That's step number one. Once you've done that, you need to identify the thought that caused those feelings. The feeling always comes from a thought. It's what's underneath the feelings. In reality, you might be thinking things if life feels out of control, you've got overwhelming situations. Maybe there is, again, in reality, circumstances you're walking through where you are very much out of control of much of the situation. And so you might be thinking things like, this is never going to get better, or this is never going to change. If those types of thoughts are underneath those feelings, you want to be able to identify whatever those thoughts are that are underneath the feelings. Because when we can identify the thoughts, we can change the thoughts. We can choose differently. And guess what? When you choose different thoughts, you're going to experience different feelings. This isn't something we're talking about here today, this whole choosing different thoughts. I'm sure I'll mention that in a different episode. Maybe I already have. I do so much coaching, so much teaching online. I can't remember what I teach, where I teach it these days. But for our purposes here, know that you want to be able to identify the thought or thoughts that are underneath the feelings that you identified in step number one. You want to be able to identify those thoughts. When you've done that, you are ready to, number three, identify the trigger. What started this? Where did this thought come from? And just the act of having done the work prior, all of these things that we've talked about literally in the first episode in this series, in the second episode in this series, and what we've talked about already today, just the act of how you have gone through everything you've gone through in this series to this point, up to this point, it's probably going to help you identify the trigger and see the trigger and recall the trigger in a slightly different way. So you do want to be able to identify the trigger. And so again, the act of just having done this work prior, it will likely give you this different perspective as you identify the trigger. Anytime we can have a different perspective, that's what we're going for. That's really what's at the heart of controlling your mindset and controlling your thoughts. It's so that you can have a different perspective, one that isn't holding you back, one that isn't keeping you stuck, but one that is allowing you to move forward, one that is allowing you to see forward so that you can move forward. But identifying the trigger, that's step number three. Step number four, what do I need to do with the trigger now? What do I need to do with whatever the event, whatever the conversation was, whatever it is that the thing that happened, what do I need to do with the trigger now? How should I process this? How do I need to process this in a more healthy way? Or do I just need to let go of it altogether? Maybe it's a situation that having gone through all of these steps, you realize, yeah, this isn't mine to worry about. This isn't true. This isn't serving me. Maybe you're done with whatever the trigger is. You've processed through it. If you've followed, if you have taken whatever has made you feel out of control throughout this 3-part series thus far, you might now say, I'm good. I can move forward. I can move beyond this. What different thoughts, here's something else to ask yourself here. What different thoughts or actions do I need to have or take if this is an ongoing situation? What different thoughts or actions do I need to have or take so that I can experience a different outcome? Right now, the outcome you're experiencing is, this feels out of control. This feels overwhelming. I don't know how to move forward. I'm stuck. Everything is swirling. Everything feels out of control. I can't even do the simple things. I'm overwhelmed. I'm in survival mode. I'm in burnout mode. If there is ongoing situations that you still have to deal with, you must ask yourself, what different thoughts or actions do I need to have or take so that I can experience a different outcome? This will give you that different perception about it. Even when so much of a situation, a reality, a circumstance is out of control, you can always control your perception, your reaction, your response, your interpretation, and your thoughts. Let me say that again. You can control your perception, your reaction, your response, your interpretation and your thoughts about every single situation. You have a lot more say-so about the outcome you're currently experiencing than you realize. And the steps and the things we have talked about throughout this whole series have given you the tools, the awareness, the empowerment, the words to do that. So how do we bring this full circle then? We've spent 3 whole episodes talking about this. How do we bring this full circle? Well, here with you, just like it is my job with clients, you need to, and I want to help you identify, process, and sift through circumstances, emotions, and experiences so that you can hold space for what's useful and how to set aside and be able to set aside what's not. That's how we're going to bring this full circle. And again, this is what I do every single day. This is what coaching is. This is what it is like to work with a life coach. A life coach, my job as a life coach is, again, I help my clients identify what they're experiencing. I help them process through what they're experiencing. I help them sift through the circumstances, identifying what's useful and what's not. We identify emotions, we process emotions, and we process experiences. And again, together, we hold space for what's useful and we set aside what's not. So how do we do that? These really are, I've got 5 action steps. These are going to be what you take. This is going to be what you do when you're living life in the trenches, and these feelings of being out of control creep back in. These feelings of overwhelm feel back in. Write these down. Come back to your notes. I hope you didn't just spend 3 episodes listening to me and just taking it in. And if you didn't take notes, go back and take notes. Again, this whole series came out of a course that I created called Taking Back Control. And I still get emails from people who tell me, I took this course 4 years ago. I still use the skills. I still haul out my notes weekly, if not daily sometimes. These are so useful. Go back and take notes, truly. But action step number 1, if you want to process through when life feels out of control, number 1, you need to get quiet with your thoughts. You need to get quiet with your thoughts. If you've never done this, just try it. Before you knock it, just try it. I love leaving myself a voice memo. I love recording my thoughts by turning on my phone to the voice memo. So I will verbally share my thoughts and feelings and record them. And then later I go back and I listen to them and then I write them down. It is like a 1-2 punch. You're talking and you're writing. And when you talk and write through your thoughts and your feelings and your perceptions and your emotions, you just are able to deeply process, which allows you to move forward. Again, we're talking about how to move forward. Man, when you have that powerful 1-2 punch, it expedites your ability to move forward to a place that is filled with more hope, empowerment, excitement, energy, all of that. But number 1, you need to get quiet with your thoughts. Number 2, once you've dumped those out, again, whether you've just written them down, I don't know if you're a journaler, you can call it whatever you want, right? You can just call it, you're going to chronicle your thoughts. When you've gotten quiet with your thoughts and you've chronicled them, you've got them on paper, now you've got to organize them. Process through, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be processing through some of them and you're going to be letting go of some of them. You only want to give space to what serves you. Many of our thoughts and feelings, we process through and we let go of them. They might come back in, but then we just repeat the process. But you've got to organize your thoughts and process through, giving space to what's useful and setting aside what's not. That's step number 2. Step number 3, when you've done that, get out and do a physical activity of some sort. Get up and do some sort of physical activity. When you've done number 1 and you've done step number 2, Give yourself a physical release. It's the act of letting go, truly letting go. 10 minutes or longer if you can, but minimum of 10 minutes. This is going to help you put the cherry on top when it comes to processing things and moving forward. You've got endorphins, right? The feel-good hormone. Here's something too. If you're struggling with steps 1 and 2, you might try the physical activity first. Sometimes a physical activity can help unlock things. Sometimes a physical activity, because you're getting your body moving, you're getting your juices flowing in a physical way, it can help get your mental juices flowing as well. So just know that if you're struggling, if you're sitting there trying to get quiet with your thoughts, trying to unpack or chronicle or journal your thoughts, and it's just not working, try a physical activity and then immediately come back and try again. But if you've done number 1, number 2, give yourself that physical release, 10 minutes or less. Step number 4, it's really beneficial to spend a little bit of time in your happy place. And your happy place can be a physical place, or it can be a happy place in your mind. I love creating just a particular area in my home that is my happy place. And for me, it's my bedroom. Now, I would like to say that my bedroom is always looking like my happy place. There's times where I've got laundry all over the chair. There's even times where I've got laundry on the floor. There's sometimes when we're in the middle of doing a quick tidy in our home and there's things that don't belong in the living room. It's easier just to put them in my bedroom for now, just to get them out of the way sometimes. So my bedroom isn't always the haven that I would love for it to be, but for the most part it is. And even when I need to, I can look past the laundry, I can look past the stuff on the floor, I can light a candle, I can turn on my little lamp, and I can put some AirPods in, and I can just get in my happy place. Sometimes you can physically go to your happy place, and this is huge, right? For me, my happy place is the beach. And I don't get there nearly as much as I used to, or nearly as much as I would like to. And I live in Michigan, and I can say I'm not going to the beach in the winter, but I love getting to the beach. It just helps me release all of those bottled up feelings and emotions. I can process them that way. One of the tricks I have found around the beach being my happy place is when I go to the beach in the summer, which we do multiple times every year, I always take videos while I'm there. Sometimes I take videos of my family doing things, but other times I just take video of into the sky at the sun, just hearing the sounds. Just sometimes I'll take videos of my feet. I always take a couple of videos of my feet in the waves, just again, pointing the camera down at my feet with the waves. And I do that knowing that it helps me recreate my happiest place when I can't physically get there. Something to consider. How could you do that? How can you substitute your actual physical happy place if you're not able to get there? But going to your happy place, that's number 4. Number 5, the last step here is to really just chronicle what's been going on. Again, write down what does your life look like? It helps you bring closure and it helps you bring everything full circle. It doesn't matter whether it's facts. It doesn't matter whether it's feelings. When life feels out of control, just taking your reality out of your mind and putting it on paper. And we're not going to do anything with what's here. The last step is just to kind of dump out whatever's left. After you've been in your happy place, there might be some more things to dump out. And so we want to make sure that we do that. So when you feel like life is out of control, go back to what you've learned here in this 3-part series. There's pieces and parts that all work together. They all serve a different purpose, but they all work together to help you get out of the backseat where life is happening to you and where everything feels out of control and everything feels messy and you feel powerless and you feel hopeless and you feel all the things that are not serving you. All of those things, they're keeping you stuck. And again, you can choose to stay stuck there, but I'm going to echo what I said just a short time ago, which is if you want to experience something different, you're going to have to do something about that. And what I've shared here with you in this 3-part series is a great way to do that. You can go back through your notes at times and you can say, what parts of this do I need? You don't have to necessarily work through all three parts, all of the things I've given you in all three parts of this podcast. You can go back and look at your notes and say, what is it I need here? Do I need to be reminded of? Maybe you'll just need to be reminded of what you don't control and what you do. Oh, that's right. I don't control that. I can stop trying. And you can go on with your day. Maybe you need to go back through what we talked about today. Maybe you need to go back through and revisit how to move forward from anything. Maybe you need to go back through those 4 steps. Maybe you need to be reminded, I decide. Maybe you need to go way back to the beginning and just remind yourself of what it means to be human. Maybe you need to give yourself permission to be human. And when you give yourself that permission to be human again, and when you're reminded of, oh yeah, that's right, I'm a human. This is allowed. This makes sense. I'm not bad. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm human. Maybe that's all you'll need to get to feel like you're back in the driver's seat. Put these notes someplace where you can use them. Share these episodes with someone who you know sometimes feels like life is out of control too. Someone you care about, she'll thank you. It'll be your gift to her. Make sure you've downloaded, saved these episodes too, so that you can go back when you need them. But that's what I've got for you today. This brings all of these 3 episodes to a close. I hope that you found it useful. If you have found it useful, we love having reviews wherever you're listening to this podcast. Please leave us a review. That's what helps people find our podcast. Feel free to leave a comment, leave a review. We love that. So until we talk again, make it an intentional day.